So we've been lied to from the get-go. And I really do believe that the disclosure, like the full global disclosure of UFOs and aliens, is going to be the number one thing that's going to break down the religious structure. Because who is God if aliens exist? Or who were the gods in, say, like a Hindu religion? And also, who were the angels who came down from the sky? Who was Jesus even? Quantum physics is where the truth is at, rather than traditional physics. Like, we don't even understand gravity, let alone space and time. And I believe the majority of our technological, mathematical, astrological, and even spiritual developments were given to us throughout the years by those beings.
Welcome, everyone. So this was one of the wildest conversations that I've recorded to date. This conversation will blow your socks off if you tune in with an open mind and heart. I'm your host, Emilio, and I had the opportunity to sit down with the intuitive channeler, truth seeker, and paradigm shifter, Elizabeth April. From her earliest days, she grew up with extrasensory abilities, mainly clairvoyance and mediumship. At 3 years old, she was already communicating with multi-dimensional beings. Being raised by a Catholic family and getting made fun of at school led her to shut down her abilities completely, and instead she pursued the acceptance of others. She began opening up to this spiritual and energetic world again when she went through a past life regression and was consciously abducted by aliens. Her life was never the same, which led her to step into her mission of helping humanity awaken. With over millions of views on YouTube and a growing community, the world is listening to what EA has to say. She's recently brought her expertise to the small screen as a featured guest on Unidentified with Demi Lovato. And her newest book, You're Not Dying, You're Just Waking Up, immediately became an Amazon bestseller. She hosts a top 10 spirituality podcast and is now highly regarded as an expert in the UFO and alien field. In this expansive podcast, we cover everything from the battle of light and dark, the human prophecy, ET disclosure, and I highly encourage you guys to stick around because towards the end, Elizabeth led me on a one-on-one reading, a psychic reading for you, the listener, and she also regressed me to a past life in ancient Atlantis. If you love what we're doing, I invite you to join this growing family and subscribe to this channel for more extraordinary interviews with leaders like Elizabeth. And don't forget to hit that like on this video to help support it and get it shown to more people. And without further ado, we welcome the bridge for the Galactic Federation of Light, Elizabeth April. Elizabeth April, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. I know this conversation is going to really explode people's minds and hearts wide open. And we made sure to give a very in-depth introduction about you, about your story before this episode started recording. So I think that'll also save us a little bit of time and get into like the real depth. I wanted also to give a little bit of context for people. Your story is so fascinating because it's almost like you popped out as like a Marvel character and you had these psychic abilities since you were a very, very young kid, and you kind of suppress those abilities because we're living in this world where that's not normal. So let's suppress it. Let's be normal. Around 16, you had your dad, who is a very old soul, very spiritual in his own way, and he regressed you into some of your past lives. And I think that was the turning point for you, where you really started deciding to investigate and question everything. And I think that was also like a lot of the initiation steps and phases of people's awakenings is this questioning phase, where you almost wanted the answers to everything. I feel like I'm still at that stage where I just need to know everything. That's why I have this podcast, and I want to share that with people. But truly, the concepts that you get into are extremely, extremely fascinating. One of the things that has blown my mind wide open, I think it's a good place to start for people, is really understanding your abilities. And I'd like to start off maybe with your first connection with these intergalactic beings that started coming into your life and giving you a bunch of wisdom and answers to these questions that you were having.
Yeah, for sure. So I always like to kind of mention and start off with saying that I truly believe everyone has extrasensory abilities. I truly believe everyone is a Marvel character in their own right. And I think that we're all pieces of this puzzle. And I think that we all bring something unique to the table. But I do believe that we can all tap into the other realms. And that's really all psychic abilities, extrasensory abilities, clair abilities are, is tapping into the other realms and using our five senses to translate and interpret the energy from those other realms. We are energy beings first and foremost. And so yeah, so it's always just really important to say that everything that I can do is not unique, it's not different, it's not special. And I'm really making it my mission to help other people experience what I'm experiencing. It's not just about one teacher, one leader, getting all the information and bringing that to the world. It's about all of us being able to access that information from within. So, that's just a really important statement to make. And, you're 23, you're just a baby. I'm 29. And it's really exciting to see this younger generation, become leaders at such young ages. So that really excites me. And I feel like these younger generations are born, whether you want to call it crystalline energy or rainbow children or indigos or whatever, but they're born with the veil that's a little bit more thin than, say, the older generations. And I'm not sure why, but probably the density of systemic pressures is a little bit more extreme in those older generations, especially when we think about religion, really being that kind of suppressor for, oh, you want to get in touch? Well, here is the container that we're going to give you to get in touch to source or God, and this is, the limitation that you have to live within. And we don't have that anymore. We're really kind of breaking free of that. So yeah, it's just really fascinating and really nice to talk to someone else who's, in that younger generation. When it comes down to my, intergalactic connections, it was around the age of 18 when I started to open up to my psychic abilities again. Went away to university. That kind of gave me the cushion to, explore and be free and not be limited by living at home and, having certain rules and regulations. So everything just opened up for me, even though I'm not doing anything in political science or whatever. That gave me the space. And so I wouldn't take it back for the world. And so at a certain point in time, I was tapping into telepathy, I was lucid dreaming, remote viewing, exploring past lifetimes, exploring trance-like states of meditation, which is all fantastic. And if you asked me at that time if aliens existed, I'd say, yeah, I mean, for sure, there's got to be something else out there in the universe, but why would they be here? Like, why would they even bother with little old us? Like, I really felt like we were this ant-like species. There's billions of terrestrial planets out there in the universe. So why us, right? And then, of course, I go away to a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And on the second night of the retreat, I ended up getting very consciously abducted by interdimensional beings. And of course, that opened the can of worms for me to understand, they are real and they are here and they are, in fact, interacting with human beings.
And interested in the human race.
Yeah. And so that just opened up a whole lot of other questions, who are they? Why are they here? Why are they interested in us? Who are we in relation to them? And it was shortly after that, so a couple months after the abduction, where there was a Palladian being who basically came through the wall in the middle of the day and said, hey, there's going to be this meeting in 2 days' time, and we really need you to kind of come to this meeting. And so I did. And I didn't know if they were going to take me physically, it was going to be a physical meeting, or if it was going to be like kind of an astral thing. But he came once again a couple of days later, came into the room. It was like 2 a.m. But he told me that he was going to come back at 2 a.m. And then he said, hey, follow me. So I follow him in my astral body. And it turns out it's this, giant interdimensional meeting. And surprisingly, at least to my surprise, it was being held inside the moon. I had no idea what the moon was, or what it consisted of, or the fact that it was hollow, or there's like meeting rooms inside of it or whatever. So in that meeting, it was a meeting not just for me, but for kind of like all of the Galactic Federation, all of the Galactic Federation alumni. And there was probably like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other like astral bodies that were there that I could tell were coming from planet Earth, because every astral body has a grounding cord, and those grounding cords were leading back to Earth, just like mine was. And then there was a lot of like physical beings who were also there, all different shapes, sizes, colors. It was so fascinating for me. And even in my astral body, I was like, I call it creeping. I was like literally going right up to these beings and just staring at them and just like floating along, because I was so fascinated. That was probably super rude of me to do, but I just never seen so many different looking, beings, in the same room. So they told me all about like the awakening, the vibrational shift. They told me and everyone there about like potential solar flash events. They told us about the battle that was happening on planet Earth. They were showing they were projecting images into our mind about these giant dinosaur looking beings that I now understand as like reptilian beings. So I didn't know any of this. I didn't know any of the kind of galactic cosmic history of planet Earth. And it really led me to this huge question.
They weren't teaching this in political science, right? They didn't tell me about the Galactic Federation.
Wait a second. We've been lied to. So it was all very new for me, very, very new. And it led me to one of the biggest questions, which wasn't answered in that meeting, which was like, why? I in that meeting, I understood there's so many resources that have been spent and so much focus that has been spent on planet Earth and human beings. But once again, why? Why is there a battle here? Why are there so many interdimensional beings here? Why is there a hybrid project? Why are they abducting us? What is the point in helping us even? What are the different agendas that are going on, and why are there different agendas? And to be honest, I asked that question. So that experience happened in 2010, 2011. And I was asking that question every single year up until they actually told me the answer, which was back in 2017. So that was like 7 years.
They made you wait.
And it's so funny. So when they finally told me the answer of why they're interacting so much with planet Earth, and I will relay the message there, but and I said, why wouldn't you tell me this years ago? This is so pertinent. This is so, important. Why wouldn't you tell me that? And I think it was actually 2018 when they told me, and they basically said that I have a really big mouth and that I relay everything they tell me, and that I don't have filters because I get too excited about the information. And I feel like everyone has a right to know all the information. So they said, it wasn't that you weren't ready for the information. It was that humanity wasn't ready for the information. So we didn't tell you because you can't hold back. I'm like, you got a point there. And so many people really think that they're like, oh my God, EA, what aren't you telling us? What do you know that we don't? And I'm like, actually, I tell you everything I get. And that's why they don't tell me certain things, because I can't help but tell you everything. So I do feel like, where I'm at and what I know is a reflection of humanity and what they are meant to know as well. So let me ask you, I know you're the interviewer here, but why do you think, and maybe you don't have an answer to this, but just from your kind of perception and the information that you've gained access to, why do you think interdimensional beings are interacting or have been interacting with humanity?
So I have kind of a cheat code because I read your book.
So your perception isn't clear. I see. Okay, maybe before the book, why would you think, or what would your perception be?
So what I kind of like gathered from also other sources, and when I started the spiritual path, I really just believed that humanity as a whole was going through this collective transformation in consciousness. Like we were elevating the ways of perception in the world, because I started hearing about people with these psychic abilities, people that could remote view, could astral travel. We've had lucid dreaming experts on the show. So I was really interested in that concept. It really just opened me up to like, okay, we're creating a new human right now, which is something that was confirmed to me in your book, that we're creating this essentially master race because all these interdimensional beings created this human in order to see if there was true harmony in this universe that has a battle of light and dark within it. So I'll let you, I just like threw that out there. I'll let you like unwrap it. Because people are like, wait, what the hell did he just say? But go ahead and unwrap that, please.
Absolutely. Yeah. So essentially the information that they brought around was that, okay, there has been a giant battle within, this universe anyway, for essentially since the universe began. And you could imagine that this universe is a binary universe. Not all universes are such, but this universe in particular is binary, which means that we've got one side and then the other side, right? We've got black and we've got white. We've got high vibration and low vibration. We've got the opposites. And because we have these two extreme energies in this universe, they have been at odds with each other for quite some time. Now, the lower vibrational beings, as a representation of this energy, are very separated from the oneness of source frequency in the universe. And due to that separation, they only care about themselves, not even their race, just themselves at an individual level. And because that's their only kind of concern, it's a lot of selfishness, it's a lot of greed, it's a lot of service to self. Now, the beings who are in the other camp, which is the higher vibrational realm, they are extremely close to source frequency, which is really that unconditional love. So those beings aren't like, we need to turn the whole universe into light. That's not what it's about. They are looking to harmonize both light and dark so that they can coexist together simultaneously, right? And that is truly this quantum frequency, is two opposites together existing simultaneously. That's the quantum world. And then the individual, right? The dimensional world is everything existing as itself independently of the other, right? And that's kind of what we're moving from, is that really dense, low vibrational dimension. So because
would you call that the third dimension, and we're moving towards this fifth dimension? Okay.
Exactly. First, second, third, even a bit of fourth is that kind of separate low frequency of just looking at one side or one angle of things. Fifth dimension and beyond, moving up to the 12th dimension is it's much more broad. It's much more in harmony. It's much more everything all at once, which can be very overwhelming for people. And so because these two sides have had different intentions for the universe, there have been giant galactic battles. So really represented in a physical way, kind of like Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever, like that shit really does exist out there in the universe. And these battles have been going on perpetually, really truly since the beginning. And so there was this like mystic, I would call her, who was a part of the Galactic Federation. And I'll just kind of define the Galactic Federation as an organization in the universe that is rallying together for unity. Once again, not just all light and all one kind of vibration in the universe, but that harmony between both sides. Yeah. So any civilization, any species, any being independently of the collective who wants to really rally for unity in the universe will join the Galactic Federation and help out at a collective level. So essentially, there was this mystic a long time ago, like probably millions of years ago, who had this download or this, realization of there is going to be a civilization or a species that's created that is going to end the war of all wars.
The prophecy.
And the information, it's the prophecy, exactly. Wow. The ultimate prophecy. And so what the Galactic Federation has been doing for such a long time to kind of like end these wars or stop these wars is these peace treaties. Now, typically, like those kind of peace treaties have been kind of written contracts, maybe not on paper, maybe on some sort of technology, but they've been contracts between, the GFL and different civilizations who are maybe at a lower vibration. It's kind of like you stay on your side, we'll stay on our side, and we can have peace, but do not override any other being's free will. Do not overtake a planet that's not your own. I mean, there's some pretty basic laws of the universe that that everyone has to abide by. And the GFL kind of makes sure that everyone is aligning to those, contracts or whatever, those laws of the universe. And so every single time these old school peace treaties, they fall apart. Why? Because why would any leader of a low vibrational race really care about what the GFL has to say? They're going to use their technology, they're going to use their weapons, they're going to use their manpower to get what they want out of the universe. Like they don't care, So every single time these peace treaties have been broken. So this woman, this mystic, this prophecy, was basically like if the GFL were to kind of create this being, okay, and the being would be created by all of the lowest vibrational beings' DNA in this one species and all of the highest vibrational DNA out there in the universe also into this one body, then basically this body, this species, this civilization would be the children of the highest and the lowest vibrational beings in the universe. And in that way, this civilization would be a walking, talking, living, breathing peace treaty. And it would be essentially up to this species to make a decision collectively what vibration they want to live in. And based on that decision, because internally that civilization has the exposure of the darkest vibration, the darkest acts, the most sinister thoughts, our shadows. But also the shadow side, but also the highest vibration, most connected, most loving, the craziest abilities of all of the beings in the universe. And so they have to make a decision. And that decision is going to lock in the peace treaty, not just for that planet, not just for those beings, but for every other being in the universe. And what I was told finally back in 2018 is that prophecy, that peace treaty, that species is us, is human beings. And we have a choice to make. And the reason why we have experienced so much distraction, so much fear, so much corruption is because we need the exposure of the lowest vibration. We need the exposure of the highest vibration in order to make our choice. But the choice has to be done collectively. And based on that choice, we will essentially affect every other planet, every other being, the GFL, all of the lowest vibrational beings out there in the universe, because we are their children. So there's nothing that they can say to basically throw us off our path. However, this is why the most amount of resources have been gathered and put into this planet, into this civilization. And I want to say that it's very clear that the dark agendas or the dark beings or the low vibrational beings have been here. They have been controlling us. They have been trapping us in weird karmic matrix system. And so the GFL has done a lot of things to try and lift us up. They've tried a lot of things. The number one thing that they discovered, let's say, quite a while ago that actually worked is getting some of the most renowned, the highest vibrational, the biggest leaders of the Galactic Federation to volunteer, to incarnate, and to come to planet Earth as a human being to lead humanity into making a decision. And hopefully that decision is for unity. We're not choosing the light, we're choosing the unification of the light and the dark. And that's what being at the quantum level, that's what stepping into 5D is all about. It's not all light, all love, all butterflies and rainbows. It's really, truly respecting and understanding both frequencies in their divine right and actually realizing that either or it's actually an illusion, you know, and they both exist in that oneness and they can't exist without each other.
I really resonate with that. And I hope everyone that's listening is like, oh, they're remembering why they're here right now. In this time in humanity, it's the most transformational time. I've said it in different episodes. I say it in the beginning of the episode. It's the most transformational time in all of human history and very pinnacle moment for the universe. And there's so many ways we could go about this. I really want to also help understand for people is that when we're incarnated as souls into this human body, essentially we're given this mission, and you lay out a lot of different missions that people could have in your book. So I wanted also to let people know that a lot of us, when we're at a young age, we're like, what's my purpose? What am I meant to do? What am I good at? And I think that's a question that leads to a lot of this stress and anxiety because we're not necessarily sure why we're here or how to tap into our gifts. The name of this podcast is Just Tap In. So how would you lead people and guide people into learning how to tap into these gifts and missions that they were meant to bring so that humanity can move through this phase in the best way possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's definitely a question I get asked all the time. What is my mission? Why am I here? Because I think a lot of these Galactic Federation volunteers or star seeds, what I call them, I mean, they know that they're here for a reason. And society brings us all of these solutions. Well, you could be a doctor or a lawyer or a garbage man or a, grocery bag filler or what, and this is why kids have so much anxiety is because they're only being presented one side of the truth. I mean, I had anxiety as a kid, feeling like no one else was there with me in this reality, or feeling like I completely shut down that reality. And I'm like, I don't even know who I am anymore. So there's a lot of different missions that I kind of label in the book, like things like the pillar or the satellite or the healer. So if you want kind of those details, please go check out the book. But what I want to say about the mission, I want to say two things. One is a lot of these missions don't actually require you to do or say anything. And I think that that's what we're looking for is something tangible. Give me my direction. You are a painter. You are a YouTuber. You are a mailman. And it just, your mission is not necessarily tangible. It's not necessarily visceral or physical. And we have to be able to accept that. We're trying to take the entire universe and the vibration that, really pushes us through the universe. And we're trying to make it into a 3D thing. And a lot of the times you just can't do that. So I want to tell people that if you feel like you have a mission, but you feel a little directionless, I want to let you know that you just being here is enough. And we don't get told that enough, that you really don't have to do or say anything to give your vibration to amplify that frequency to the rest of the planet. You decided to volunteer here. You do have a lot of information, a lot of gifts, and you don't necessarily need to be screaming them from the rooftops. As a matter of fact, you can make a lot of waves without doing that. And most likely you are making a lot of waves without doing that. You don't even know
the more we try, the more we separate ourselves from that same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's really an important statement to make. Now, the second statement is, how do you discover your inner gifts, or how do you discover your inner mission? And the number, or how do you really tap in? The number one thing that I can recommend is always quieting your mind. We literally live in such a world full of stimulation and distraction. And a lot of, once again, the younger generations have, like, we would diagnose it as like ADHD or whatever. We don't realize, or on the spectrum, we don't actually realize that these kids are actually, their brains just function at a higher capacity level. And our freaking education system cannot keep up with the way that their brains process. So the problem with that is, we have these overstimulated brains because we can figure things out, at light speed, multiple times, at the same time, right, in this simultaneous fashion. And so in order to quench that thirsty brain, we're scrolling on social media or watching TV or doing both at the same time, and we're trying to kind of bring in this multifaceted, stimulated experience, when in actuality, we need to get rid of all of that to have a more multifaceted experience, tapping in to these other realms and dimensions. That's what our brain is supposed to be doing, is tapping into another dimension while we're here existing in the physical one. And that's what's going to really satisfy and fulfill us at a much deeper level, so that we don't feel we need to distract. We don't feel we need to be on our phone while we're driving or whatever, So it's really important that your mission is there, your skills and abilities are there, but they are completely shrouded in distraction and, this physical world. So let go of the physical world, whether that be, I'm not a big proponent of, meditate 5 hours a day and you'll find your truth. I feel like we can meditate throughout our day. I feel like we can set intentions in the moments in between. It takes the fastest 2-second, awareness of, what do I want out of my day today? Or how do I want my body to process the food I'm about to eat? We can be in full conscious directive control over our physical reality just by bringing awareness to it. And it's the same thing with the mission. The second you stop worrying about what you need to do, you actually stop worrying about this physical world altogether, is the second that you're going to find that inner passion and that basically that energy that lights you up from within, and if you're sitting there and you're like, well, I really want to help the world, I really want to give back. There are so many ways to do that. And I also just want to open your mind to say, we need individuals who are super awakened as grocery baggers. We need individuals who are super awakened as veterinarians. We need people who are awakened as, admin staff. We need awakened people in every facet of society. It doesn't just mean that, oh, well, I'm going to be an energy healer just because I feel like I want to give back. There are so many other ways to give back as well, in the physical reality too. So, don't just limit yourself to the metaphysics. Although I do want to mention that, for a lot of people who are like, I really want to be a spiritual coach or an energy healer, a Reiki practitioner, a yoga practitioner, or whatever. I really encourage that too, because a lot of people are like, there's so many psychics out there. There's so many coaches out there. And I say, you only think that because you're stepping into the field and all you're attracting is that. However, we have 8 billion people in the world right now who have not waken up, who have no idea what's going on. And we need as many people as possible to step into that mission, to take action on being those leaders, so that we can help those 8 billion people. So, it's kind of, I just want to leave all of the doors open for people to say that don't put pressure on yourself to find that mission, but by living living your highest vibrational experience, that mission is easily going to fit into your life. And try not to focus on what that may look like, or when it comes in or how it comes in, as well.
I just wanted to quickly mention that every single month you hold this space for people to go into your platform on your website, and you essentially download information from this Galactic Federation of Light. And I was actually at the March one this month. Incredible. I just want to tell you that it blew my mind wide open, because there's so many current events in society that once you understand that there's an underlying agenda and there's a battle between this light and dark, you kind of see past the, whatever gossip is going around in the news or whatever that is also distorting a bit our perception. I wanted to talk to you about the light and dark battle, and also how it correlates to this awakening of the human species. In a sense, there's 8 billion people on the planet, as you mentioned. I wanted to ask you, where are we right now in terms of I don't want to use numbers exactly precisely, but like percentage of humanity that is awakened right now, and how is that process going in terms of, are we on the right pace? Are people waking up when they need to? And also, how does that correlate to this battle of light and dark?
Yeah, great questions. So as far as timelines, it's really tough. Like, where are we at, on our projected timeline, or where are we at in the collective contracts? That's tough because things have been pushed back, actually. Like 2017 was supposed to be a huge kind of reawakening experience. There was supposed to be a lot of events that took place. And humanity just wasn't ready at that time to really go through that awakening. And then I was told in 2018 that 2020 to 2024 was going to be the absolute collapse of the old 3D reality. And we're talking religion, we're talking education, we're talking finance, we're talking politics. I mean, we're talking all of that, right? Mm-hmm. And so, of course, 2020 hit, and I was like, oh my God, you said this 2 years ago. And so I believe that we're in the middle of it. I do think that it's going to get worse. And as far as this battle, like, it gets pretty crazy. Like, the March GFL summit was very political. But I also had a lot of curious questions about that. And that's kind of why we geared towards that, because right now what we're seeing is 2020, it was all about the V, it was all about the vax, and it was all about COVID. And now it's all about Russia and Ukraine. And what I'm really seeing, just from an objective perspective, because I don't choose sides, I try and stay very neutral, is that you have the 3D information that's being pushed, which is whatever the mass media tells us to believe. Then you have the 3D people who believe all of what the mass media is saying, which is just fine because that's just where they're at. Then you have the 4D people who, it's kind of like fourth dimension is you're questioning things and you're waking up to new layers of this reality, but you're still stuck in this reality, to the fact of like the conspiracy layer of like, oh, it was the government that did it to themselves, or they're actually projecting like false narratives, or what have you, which is, I think it's important to have that 4D layer. But what I'm seeing is that, it's like the 3D versus the 4D. It's like the battle of like, the information of like, well, I'm right because QAnon told me this, or like, I'm right because, CNN told me this. And there's still just layers within this matrix, right? When you go into 5D, you start to wake up and realize that both of those sides are existing. There is the 3D, there is the 4D, but they're also both just illusions. You know what I mean? They're just experiences that we're going through. And I'm a big believer in this whole thing as a simulation, and this is a video game, and we chose to be here and learn lessons and what have you. But it is a very important video game that we're in right now. So as far as like where the battle is at, like, it is a full-on war that is being waged. And it was a video I put out in 2019 that like 2020 was going to be World War III. And World War III is like a spiritual war, is what it is. It's a war between vibrations, you know, and this war has been going on for quite some time. But what we're seeing right now is that, you know, the light is actually starting to win, because you know, I kind of chuckle and I kind of laugh, which I probably shouldn't, but say the elites or the cabal or the shadow government, the dark agendas, they're pushing so much fear into society right now that people are actually sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yeah. So they're actually waking up. So their plan of pushing the fear agenda is actually pushing people into a conscious awakening, which is I think it's really ironic and really funny that the amount that they're trying to push is actually turning people into a higher vibration, because you get to a point where you're looking at the mainstream or you're looking at the conspiracy and you're so overwhelmed with the information, you're so overwhelmed with the negativity, you're so overwhelmed with the fear in 3D and in 4D, where you're like, God, something's got to give here. There's got to be some other layer to this that I'm not actually seeing. And when you start to question what else exists other than the fear in 3D or 4D, you actually start to raise your vibration out of those frequencies, and you start to realize like, oh, the whole universe is just this beautiful oneness of both of these vibrations existing. And I don't actually have to participate in the 3D or the 4D in order to be here. So that's kind of where we're at in the battle. Like, we are literally in the middle of it. It's going to continue. I do think things are going to get worse before they get better at a third dimension level. So at a physical level, things will get worse. And then, you know, there's this whole kind of white hats and GFL stepping in, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And I like to kind of poke into it, relay the information, but once again, not get sucked into it, and really hold the highest vibration, that the world is collapsing only to shift into a higher vibration, and holding the trust that everything is happening for a reason and it's going to plan, which I truly believe it is.
And it's key that you're doing that, because the more we can get away from this polarity, the faster we can progress to that unity consciousness, which at the end is the goal of all of this, you know, becoming this species of understanding things through this unity consciousness. I knew this conversation was not going to be linear. I also wanted to backtrack to one moment in the conversation that I think is really interesting to unravel, and it's that the human race was tinkered with in their DNA. And, you know, Charles Darwin's like, what the fuck? He's like, no, like, what are you saying? Like, that's not what I said. And a lot of people grew up with that paradigm of, you know, it was this evolution where we came from apes and now we're this, but something else happened. And I wanted to ask you about that and let you relay that information that you've received from different sources.
For sure. So most of the information that I've received is from the Galactic Federation, but also from my own remote viewing experiences. Like, when I started to step into remote viewing and astral traveling, you know, it started through past life regression. It started through seeing other people's past lives and my own past lives. And then I started to question, who is Jesus? Can I go back there? How were the pyramids made? Could I go back there? What happened in ancient Greece? Can I go back there? And when I started to go back into these ancient human history places, I started to see a lot of non-human looking beings. And I'm like, who are these guys who are walking around? You know, what's taking place? What is this dinosaur creature that's, you know, walking around ancient Egypt? This is bizarre. And so, like, a lot of that knowledge and wisdom is like firsthand experience of actually seeing what was taking place back then. Now, it's funny because evolution theory actually does state that there's a missing link, right? Homo erectus, Neanderthal, Homo sapiens. Like, how did we get from here? You know, a couple hundred years was actually a couple million years of progression. I mean, what filled in that missing link? Of course, I believe that it was interdimensionals, but it wasn't like, oh, they came down that one time and they like shared their DNA with us and we evolved, you know, instantaneously. It was many, many, many years of many, many, many interactions with many different interdimensional beings. Like, I believe we have upwards of 20 different interdimensional beings' DNA within us. And based on your own bloodline, based on your own family lineage, you maybe have more Palladian DNA, you have maybe more Anunnaki DNA, you have more gray DNA based on where you came from. So it was kind of at different moments in human history where they came in and they interacted with us. And so some of the DNA splicing was done on their ships through, say, typical abduction. And they would kind of experiment or really just kind of give us that DNA through technology. And then some of the DNA splicing was actually through like intercourse, believe it or not. And this is where you get back into like the ancient Greek mythology of, you know, the giants were walking around and the giants fell in love with the humans. And I believe that the giants were the Anunnaki and they fell in love with the humans and they made babies. And those babies were called demigods. And those demigods were a mix of human beings and Anunnaki beings.
There's always some truth to mythologies. Always.
Absolutely. And, you know, even if you look at the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, I mean, you see snakes on there, you see giant humanoid beings. I mean, who do you think that those were, right? I mean, you see gods that were depicted with different animal heads. I mean, you know, the truth is really in plain sight. We just have to look for it. So we've been lied to from the get-go. And I really do believe that the disclosure, like the full global disclosure of UFOs and aliens, is going to be the number one thing that's going to break down the religious structure. Because who is God if aliens exist? Or who were the gods in, say, like a Hindu religion? And also, you know, who were the angels who came down from the sky? You know, who was Jesus even? You know, I believe he was an ascended master. I believe he was an interdimensional in his own right. And he was here to show us what we are all capable of, not what the Son of God is capable of. We are all the sons and daughters of source frequency. We can all walk on water. Like, I truly believe if I so desired, I could stick my hand through a wall. Like, I believe that quantum physics is where the truth is at, rather than traditional physics. Like, we don't even understand gravity, let alone space and time. You know, we're so juvenile in that way. And I believe the majority of our technological, mathematical, astrological, and even spiritual developments were given to us throughout the years by those beings.
So powerful, so powerful. I think this would be a great moment in the conversation to really allow people to experience some of these gifts that you hold and also show people what's possible. I asked you before we started recording if you were okay with kind of reading my energy field. I'm wide open for that. And essentially I had really two main things that I wanted to ask you, if that's okay. And one is, of course, a little bit of a selfish question. I wanted to ask you if you could tap in to see what DNA I'm working with in this lifetime. It's a question that since I was reading your book, reading through that chapter, I was like, I wonder what genetic makeup I hold. And the second one is more selfless, using kind of my energy to be a mirror for whoever is listening and what they need to hear in this moment that could unlock something in their DNA. I think that would be a great kind of combo right there.
Cool. I love that. And I want to start off by just saying, because I have to say this, I don't do one-on-one sessions anymore. So we always get just a flurry of emails like, oh my God, when can I book with EA? But I actually, I'm starting to offer coaching calls, which is essentially I get a bunch of people in a Zoom room together and I call upon the ones that I feel intuitively aligned with that need to receive the information. Yeah. And just like what I'm about to do with you, I give them what they need to know in that moment and everyone else can benefit from it. So I just want to direct people to say, if you really enjoy this or you feel like you need a part of it, then please check out the coaching calls that I offer or the membership platform that includes the coaching call. So
and we'll definitely
just
link
before I get
everything.
A ton of emails.
Yeah. We'll link all of your information.
Absolutely.
Either if you're listening On audio, it's in the description, or on YouTube, it's in the description as well. So
cool. Okay, 1 second. Let's take a look here. Okay, so to your first question, your kind of cosmic connections and your roots. So the way that I channel is I see all of the information very visually. So, you could call it clairvoyance. Immediately when I tap into your energy and I'm kind of posing that question of the cosmic connection, I'm getting a flashback to a past life that you had. It was actually a past life on this planet. And you were a man during ancient Atlantis. You were it kind of reminds me of the cartoon, The Last Avatar, The Last Avatar or whatever. And you were you were able to manipulate water. I don't know how else to say that, but literally, I see you on the edge of Atlantis and you're bringing up water and you're making it into a sphere, you're pushing it around, you could do some really cool things with water. And you try to bring this ability to other things as well, other materials, but for whatever reason water was your only element that you were able to kind of manipulate. And you would teach others how to do this. And then you were also very connected to marine life as well, marine life, the ocean and the balance of the ocean and the people. So you were kind of in charge of keeping that balance. Now, at that time, Atlantis was seeded with a lot of interdimensional beings, and a lot of the main species that was there were the Palladians. So your DNA was very, very, very high amount of Palladian. I want to say actually you were probably 100% Palladian at that time. There wasn't any mix with basically the Neanderthals or whoever it was, Homo sapiens, who were on the planet at that time as well. So just Atlantis was just very advanced, very technologically, energetically. I mean, really way more advanced than we are today. And so that's kind of who you were. Now, right before the fall of Atlantis, you got the message and a couple of others got the message. And I don't know if you actually got the message from the people, from certain people, because not everyone knew, or you just got the message as a kind of a channel download that you need to get off Atlantis, something, it was just going to be destroyed basically, or sank or whatever. And so you ended up leaving. It was you and a small group of individuals who left, and you ended up kind of just traveling quite far, and you settled into a human community, like a tribe almost, and you fell in love, and that's kind of where your lineage started. Now, what's really interesting is in this lifetime, you chose the same genetic lineage of that being that you were back in ancient Atlantis. So your DNA, it's been really watered down over the years, but absolutely your main DNA within your body at a physical level is Palladian, and it's coming from the ancient Atlantean times, from specifically the lifetime that you lived, which is quite a rare thing to have happen. I've definitely seen oh, you've been Palladian in many, cosmic lifetimes. So of course you want to make that connection now. I want to mention one more thing that came through with, and I'm actually going to get a name for your Palladian being too, because I feel like that would be interesting. But one more thing, just about your mission here. And I feel like sometimes you feel like a little bit like restless or anxious about your mission. Uh, and so because you saw all of the mistakes that happened back in ancient Atlantis and then Atlantis fell, basically, you have this like veracity in you to ensure that those mistakes don't happen again. So, like, you've come back to like basically help humanity navigate through this new world and anchor in sustainable practices, because it's almost like once the new world hits, and it's not going to be like boom, like it's the new world, it's going to be an integration. But it's like, how do we work with the advancements of our consciousness? How do we work with the advancements of technology, the advancements within our systems, so that we don't get carried away with those advancements? So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, I don't know if you ever like watch the news or know what's going on in the world, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's certain things that really like that you have a strong reaction to, or that really bug you about like things that are happening in the world in particular, because it's almost like this immediate panic comes back of like, oh my God, let's not do what we did before in ancient Atlantis. So you're kind of one of these Atlantean lost souls that are coming back to ensure that we do things right this time. And that's why you decided to come in right at the precipice of the new Earth. And you didn't decide to come in after the new Earth was like very strongly developed, you know? And so you're here to kind of lead the way in a sustainable way. Like that's kind of your main word, is like, how do we grow and expand our consciousness sustainably? Not for the moment, not for a good time, not for a YOLO, but like sustainably, so that we can really carry that on to our generations as well. And I also think like environmentally, you're very connected to, obviously, like marine life, once again, like just coming from that life, very connected to. And I also wouldn't be surprised if you felt like you could manipulate material or matter, or like control the weather, or like something like that too.
Yeah. I have chills. That's all I can say. And I mean, I resonate a lot with the water element. You know, my astrological sign is Cancer. So I do resonate a lot, and I take like a lot of showers a day. Just kidding. But yeah, wow, that resonates a lot. Thank you so much for
Very
that.
cool. Yeah, I'll get a name for your Atlantean lifetime as well. It's going to be a translation from the language of Atlantis, but I'll translate it the best I can into English. When is your birthday if you're a Cancer?
July 17th.
Okay, cool. I'm July 8th. So like Cancer babies, what up?
Cancer vibes out here.
Totally. The cocooning. Like I love being in a cave. I'm like, I'll just cocoon.
The nurturing. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's just see if I can get a name, and then we'll move on to kind of a general message for you, and then for your audience too, for the community. Okay. Okay, interesting. So sometimes names are like translated from light language, or that individual's like language, and sometimes they're chosen. And this was a chosen one, and it's a chosen one to plant a seed to help you open a door to something else that you need to know about. But they're not giving me any other information. There's a word that comes through. I don't even know what this is, but I feel like I'm probably so wrong, but like I feel like it is a time period in history, or it's like a section of humanity that you're really connected to, that you need to like do some research on. And the word that came through when I was trying to get this name is theologians. Do you know what a theologian is, or theologians? The theologians? Like, I don't know what that is. Yeah.
I've definitely heard it before though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out. Do some research, read some books about it. I don't know what it is. I feel like, once again, it's like a time period or like something. Anyway, so he said that you're very connected to the theologians. And that's something else that you need to kind of unlock and explore. And then he also said, because of that connection, he wants to be called Theo. So once again, that's the kind of link there, and something else to kind of help you open this door. He felt like like even when he was saying that or describing that name, it felt like a kind of like this like super like soft, divine, masculine warrior type of energy that came through with that. So whatever, take it or leave it, but definitely look into that and see what else you can kind of unpack.
Wow, thank you. The last two words of Theo are my initials, Emilio Ortiz. So that's funny.
Really?
Yeah, that's
wow.
funny.
So interesting.
E-O,
So interesting.
E-O and EA out here spitting.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if there's like a general message for you and then your community. So 1 second. Okay, so I'm not sure if this is like for you as well or just for your community, but I'll kind of relay the imagery that came through. So it's this image of like, it's kind of very interesting. It's a metaphorical image, okay? It's not a literal one. But it's this image of like a person who's like crouched down, almost like huddled in a kind of like a survival kind of fetal position. And it almost looks like they're in this like red box. Now, red represents the energy of foundations, like root chakra. And it's almost like, and I feel this with my community as well, like so many people from this conversation are going to be like, okay, cool. Like, I get it. And that really resonates with me. And I'm definitely here for something greater. And like, this is all fantastic. And like, boom, boom, boom. But I'm still stuck. Like, I can't move. Like, so many people right now are in this place where they just feel stuck with life, stuck with their job, stuck with their relationship, stuck in their perception and mindset. And they're just like literally in this box, this limitation. And so it's funny because it's like, okay, that all resonates with me, but like, now what? Like, now what do I do with that? Like, what's my next move? And how do I get unstuck? So then I had to ask the question, okay, like how do I help these people, you know, who are stuck? And the answer that came through was to really work on the solar plexus chakra, which is all about like confidence and free will and like empowerment. And it's a very like, it's like you being sure of yourself or trusting and all of that great stuff. So the way to work on, the easiest thing that I can recommend to unstick yourself and to raise your vibration, once you're in a higher vibration, it's almost like you raise yourself above the clouds, above the storm, above the chaos, above the pressures, above the, you know, duality and density. And when you're in that place, things will make sense. Things will happen easily. Manifestation will occur effortlessly, but you've got to get to that place. So in order to do so, the number one recommendation that comes through for today is gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Gratitude, I know it sounds like, no, I could read a book about that. You know, it sounds kind of lame, but like gratitude is the number one translator from a low vibration into a high vibration. So I usually always give this example of like your job. It's like, I hate my job. The people I work with don't respect me. I'm making minimum wage. I'm stuck in a 9-to-5. I can't grow. I'm just stuck. I'm just completely stagnant in this position. And so many people are feeling that. So what I recommend is, if you really think about it, the majority of your focus and your intention when you link how you feel to your job is all at a low vibration, right? It's you're literally focusing on the low vibration that you're encountering, which is spiraling you into more low vibration. And even if you were to leave your job, what are you going to attract? Another job that encompasses all of that low vibration, because that's what you've been focusing on. Therefore, that's what you've been projecting into your next move of reality. So take a look at the things that you feel stuck in the most and find something to appreciate about them. So if you really hate your job, that's okay. But the number one thing that you should focus and only focus on is the one aspect of it that you can appreciate. Well, it's stable and it's paying my bills. Fantastic. Focus on those things and those things only. What you do is you raise your vibration, still being stuck in that same physical dimension, but upon raising your vibration, that thing, that job that definitely no longer serves you will naturally go away, and a job that actually matches your heightened vibrational frequency will come in very easily, organically, and effortlessly. So what we can do is raise our vibration by bringing gratitude to our life. If you have an alarm, put an alarm on your phone, and 3 times a day it's your gratitude alarm. In that moment, what are you grateful for? And a lot of you are like, well, I can't find anything to be grateful for. Well, think about it. 30% of the planet doesn't have access to the internet. What are you doing right now by listening to this podcast? You have access to infinite amounts of information. Not that you need it, because you have everything from within, but seriously, think, we've got water from our tap, and we can complain about fluoride, but guess what? We can drink the water out of our tap. We have an infinite supply of clean, fresh water that, guess what? 20% of the world, 50% of the world does not have access to, or whatever that percentage is. It's really important that we take it back down, especially in this Western world, and we realize what we have rather than focus on what we don't have. It's not the new car. It's not the bigger house. It's not the better relationship. Focus on what you do have. Raise your vibration from within, and everything else will align for you, and you will immediately feel unstuck. It's not about the current predicaments of your reality. It's about your perception around it.
Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. I love that. One quick question from that whole channeling, and I just wanted to thank you for that. I still have kind of like goosebumps on my skin from what you've been saying. When you get into this state of like receiving a message for someone or tapping into someone's past lives, you mentioned he was telling me this. Is that when you're tapping into these energies, is it like a spirit guide, or are you tapping into someone's higher self, or what does that process really look like? Just really curious.
Yeah, it's I go to a variety of information. I'll go to your higher self. I'll go to your spirit guides. When I mentioned I was specifically mentioning Theo, who is that kind of parallel self of yours. So even though he's in the past and his physical body is no longer with us, energetically, he's still around, and you can still talk to him and tap into him and ask him questions and ask him to bring back some of those skills and abilities. And I believe that we can do that with all past lifetimes, both on and off this planet. So it's a variety of information. Like when I tap in for information for the collective, it's, the consciousness grid around planet Earth. It's the Galactic Federation. It's my own astral traveling experience. It's interdimensional beings. It's the collective vibrations, the contracts. There's so many layers of where we can go to receive information. And all we need to do is quiet that egoic mind that's saying, oh, well, I'm hungry right now, or I'm tired right now, or, and get into that trance-like state where we kind of consciously disassociate with this reality and reconnect with all of the other things that are going on, all of the other realities. But I do want to mention one more thing when we're talking about like tapping in. So a lot of people are like, EA, like I'm just not psychic. Like you tell me all the time that I'm psychic. I can't, I've done it. I can't do it. No one's talking to me. I'm talking to someone. And I say to them, I'm like, I'm sure that you are in that space to receive information. But think about Google, right? Like the platform, the search engine, right? You bring up Google, you've got Google in front of you. Google is the gateway to all of the information all around the world, in this, I guess, dimension reality.
When there's no censorship.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you've got the search engine in front of you, you can't just expect that Google's going to give you what you need to know. You've got to type in a question. So a lot of people end up quieting their mind. They go into a trance. They open up their third eye to the ethers, the all of the universe. But they don't have a question. They don't have an intention. So they're just sitting there like twiddling their thumbs, like, what's going on? Hi, who's around? Whereas if you're clear, you're consistent, and you're very kind of intent on what you're looking for, that will come to you, and realize that it may not come as an image, it may not come as a word, it might come as a podcast episode that you listen to, or as an article that you read, or a stranger that you bump into and you have a weird conversation with. Answers come to us in many different forms, and we need to really open our mind to how the information is received, because we are the creators of the reality around us. So every little moment of your day is created by you to help answer your questions, to teach you a lesson, to close karmic doors. There's so much to gain access to. We just have to be aware that we're in control of all of it, and everything that's happening is happening for a reason.
In your book, and I just realized that we've said your book, the name is You're Not Dying, You're Just Waking Up. I love the title. And you have this concept that is called From Victim to God. And I think that goes really well with that last message that you just downloaded for the audience, for the community, is how can we transition from this victim to becoming our own gods and our own creators of our reality? What's the number one thing that you would tell people when making that transition in the mindset? You've mentioned a lot of like little nuggets of wisdom, but what would be one of the main takeaways for people to transition to become the gods of their reality?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from victim to God, it's truly take responsibility for everything, right? Like I use this example of, if you're stuck in traffic and there's some like guy behind you and he's on his phone texting and he ends up rear-ending you, and you're like, oh my God, what a douchebag, on his phone texting, didn't see that the traffic stopped, and now I have to deal with all this stuff because of that guy. I would turn that around and say, why did I create that? I mean, in a 3D way, it's like, oh, well, that wasn't my fault that he was texting and not paying attention. But I truly believe that a moment like that is something that we create, we bring into our reality. And when we ask ourselves, why did I create that? And you see that all of the shittiest things about your life and all of the best things about your life, you created, you were in control of. You immediately turn that energy around from why is life happening to me to actually happening to life. And that is the most important thing, is to realize that why do I keep attracting the same shitty partner? Why do I keep dating the same type of person? Like, realizing that I'm attracting that because I have unresolved father issues from childhood. Oh, fantastic. Let's get into that. Let's unpack that. Let's heal that. And then I never have to attract that again. When we recognize that we created everything in our life, good, bad, and ugly, we can then recognize that we did it and transmute it into a higher vibration by taking on that responsibility. And then we can also pat ourselves on the back for the things that we have created that are absolutely beautiful. And the more that we go through that process, the less we have to deal with the shitty things, because the more everything in our life is aligned to the highest and most authentic vibration.
What would you say is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned in the past 12 months?
Oh, past 12 months. Geez, like every day is something new. I would say there's a lot, but ultimately learning how to bring a heightened vibration to the things that I am obligated to do as a human being. So a really great example of that is like paying taxes, paying your bills, having tough conversations with family members. Like, it's easy to heighten your vibration where you're like, I want to manifest this, and all the butterflies and the rainbows. But when it comes down to it, there are absolutely things that we're just obligated to do. And to be patient in that moment and to bring appreciation to that moment and to realize that this is a part of the experience too, and to be grateful for that part of the experience just as much as you're grateful for talking to your spirit guides or manifesting some cool thing or having an awesome conversation. To really bring gratitude to those dense moments is so, so important. And that's something that I've been really just working on at a human level.
Yeah. And you mentioned also that in another interview, I think, that these interdimensionals are also sometimes jealous of this human experience, for example, we can hug other people, we can feel this extremity of emotions, we can have sex, we can experience an orgasm. Like, these are human things that we take for granted, but it's in the spectrum of the universe. A lot of other species are like, I wish I could experience that.
Absolutely. So yeah, there's so much a part of that kind of human experience that that they don't get to have. And once again, to really just bring appreciation to the fact that we did choose to be here. We chose to be here at this time for a reason, and to really just soak in every last moment, every last experience of being here is so important.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, as we start wrapping up, just where, I mean, a lot of people are like, wow, just blown away by a lot of the information that you just channeled and showcased to us. And where would you send people that want to go deeper into your information? Maybe some incoming projects that you have coming along. I know you're writing a new book, interviews with these interdimensionals. Anything that you would like to let people know about that you're doing right now, and where they can get to know more of your stuff even deeper than we already went.
Yeah, for sure. My website's a great place. It's just elizabethapril.com. And we have this brand new membership, censorship free platform that's incredible. It's called the Cosmic Society. So meeting people, in a community from all over the world who are also looking to deep dive. And then I've got 800 plus videos on there, and we've got an Oracle card deck and a little space alien game. It's a really cool, fun space to be in. And that's where you'll find out about all my other events. I do have the Galactic Federation events every single month. So if you want to hear direct messages from the Galactic Federation, I definitely highly recommend that. You'll find that on my website. And then the book is honestly a great place to start. And just type in the name Elizabeth April on Amazon and you'll find it pop up there. And it's a really incredible overview for anyone who is experiencing a spiritual awakening, the awakening symptoms. It goes from anxiety to depression to questioning everything to the modalities into your mission and aliens and quantum physics and simultaneous time. It really is a pretty cool overview of everything one might experience. And it's a great gift to give someone too who's really struggling in their reality as well.
Yeah, and I see that in this awakening phase, and anyone, probably if you're already listening to this, you're going through an awakening because you were called and drawn to this information. But Elizabeth, she really goes into this phases of the awakening process that, I even though I experienced it much different than you, I resonated and I was like, yes, she put it into words what I went through or what I'm going through right now. So it's a good companion, I would say, in this time, in this process. So I highly recommend it. And when can we expect the next book?
Totally. Yeah. So I'm about maybe about 60-70% of the way through my next book. It's basically my Galactic Federation summits every month, but put into a book. And it's it blew my mind. It's just straight up conversations, questions from me, answers from them. It's really incredible. So that should be coming out, I'm thinking, beginning of 2023. I just have to find the time to get back into it. It's just it takes a lot of energy for me to not only just astral travel up there and receive the information, but then astral travel back into my body to verbatim type what they're saying. It's one thing to get information and relay it in a very kind of open space in a conversational manner, but to get their words and to use the brain power to translate their words as well can be very exhausting. So, but yeah, that book is next level. The first book is a pretty good, just kind of blanket overview. The next book is a freaking deep dive.
Yeah. I would love to bring you back on and discuss that when that's out.
Definitely.
I would be more than happy to get that also out to other people. And we finish every episode with what I call the final trio. They're just really rapid fire questions, personalized to the guest. Sometimes I prepare them before. In this case, I didn't. So I said, I'm just going to see what comes up in the conversation intuitively. And the first one, you can answer this in any way you want. It could be even a word. That's all. You said in your book that a lot of us starseeds, or people that are incarnating in this time in history, might be their last lifetime as human beings on this earth. And I wanted to ask you if you feel that this is your last lifetime as a human being.
I hope so. I do. I really do think that this is going to be my last round here, and maybe I'll come back on a ship one time, in the future.
Awesome. What Marvel character do you resonate the most with?
Oh, that's a great question, because I do love like comic books, superheroes, totally my jam. I would say Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
I definitely knew you were gonna say that. And Doctor Strange 2 is coming out, and the funny thing is that we're talking all about this interdimensional and timelines and all of this, and Marvel is leading the way to bring this to people in a way that's actually digestible. Like, I actually understand a lot of the concepts that you talk about from seeing Marvel movies. It's insane. Like, it's wow. In the collective consciousness. And Doctor Strange 2 is all about the multiverse and how he like tinkered with the universal laws, which brings us to the final question that I have for you, which is, what is for you the most undervalued universal law, but maybe also one of the most potent laws in the universe?
It's a really good question. Okay, I would say the law of free will is super, super undervalued in the way that a lot of people on planet Earth don't realize that they have free will, because they're just continuously looking at how stuck they are, or how trapped they are by the system. So it's really like the law of free will is really undervalued by humans, but it is for sure the biggest power we have. We have the free will to change our entire life for the better. And that's something that we need to keep in mind moving forward.
Elizabeth, it was a true pleasure. Is there any other messages that you would like to leave for the next generation of leaders? Maybe what would be your legacy for this new generation that's creating the new earth?
I would say, really to step into the power that you have within, to understand that you have everything that you could ever need, that you don't need a teacher or a guru or a course or a book to get you there. And to always bring yourself back to a neutral place, to always bring yourself back to balance, because that's where I think we can tap into the entire universe, is in that place of 0 point neutrality.
Elizabeth, I'm so humbled, and it was such a pleasure for this conversation to come about. What's weird just to give people some background, is that this was the first conversation that I felt was actually drawn to me. I was at a Dr. Joe Dispenza event in Cancun, and I came out of one of the meditations and I got an email from your team introducing me to you. I'm like, duh, like I already know, I listened to her. Like, so it was just a great experience for me. Also realizing that I was creating, realized that I was in the seat of my manifestation, and my desires were being heard by the universe. And I see these moments as little breadcrumbs along the way, that the universe is telling us, you're on the right path, keep going. And we usually don't realize that those breadcrumbs are just confirmation from the universe or our higher selves, right? And I just wanted to thank you. I want to empathize with you as well. I know you've been doing tons of podcasts and you're doing videos. Like, I saw your calendar on your website and it's filled with like stuff. And I was like, wow, like you're really stepped into your purpose and your mission and giving back to humanity. So I wanted to honor you for that and really, give you my best energy for that mission. This was a very energizing conversation for me, and I hope as well for you, and that the next couple of months for you are incredible and you're really doing incredible things. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that we got connected, and I hope to do this again sometime.
Yeah, likewise. I'm very much so looking forward to our next conversation. If that's what this conversation was about, I can't wait for what the next one's going to be about. So
Yes.
Such a pleasure. And I do want to say that I always find that, the information that comes out every time is different in these interviews, and it's always based on the vibrational frequency of the one who's interviewing, because your audience is a mere reflection of your vibration. And I really think that we went for it. And that really tells me that your audience is cosmic. They are, galactic volunteers. They are here on a mission. And I'm really excited to kind of watch and follow your journey as well and see where you end up. And of course, all of the people in your community too. So it'll be fun to check back in a little bit.
Yes, much love, Elizabeth. Thank you so much.